You're not seeing the progress and results that you want with your physique because you haven't fully accepted and don't understand these 4 things about nutrition. Now, you could be training as hard as you want in the gym. You could be putting in 110% max effort. You could be being consistent with your training, but the reality is nutrition has and always will play a more significant role when it comes to your physique development and your overall health and well-being, obviously, than your training and time spent in the gym. And not only on top of that, nutrition is also significantly more difficult to be consistent with. And with the fear-mongering and misinformation that's just being spread on the internet and social media nowadays, it's more and more people are becoming overwhelmed or overthinking their nutrition, or simply just buying into absolute bullshit and then not being able to apply nutrition correctly or efficiently. So I'm going to go over 4 things that you should very much be aware of and accept and apply to your own diet in order for you to see maximal results in a nutshell. So the first rule and principle that I'm going to go over is calories are king. Let's put everything else to the side for a second, okay? Everything apart from your weight management. So building muscle, strength, performance in the gym, just because I know some cunt in the comments is going to start spouting off here. Everything apart from body weight management is going to the side for just 1 second. Calories are the only thing that matter here. Okay, so whether you are looking to lose weight, gain weight, somewhat maintain your weight, the only thing that matters in this scenario is your calories. Okay, so if you're really looking to sort of figure out like, okay, Ross, how many calories do I actually need to be eating? A really simple formula or calculation to go over with is your body weight in pounds times by 15. Simple as. Now, is that number going to be 100% accurate? Probably not. Okay, so it is going to require a little bit of adjustment there. But if you're looking to lose body fat, let's think about 1 pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. Okay, divide that by 7 days in the week, that's 500 calories. So if we're looking to lose a pound of body fat, this is a very rough calculation by the way, if you're looking to lose a pound of body fat in the week, your deficit should be about 500 calories. Now, if you're someone who's got a significant amount of body fat to lose, you might be in a position where you have the calories to be in a 500 calorie deficit. However, if you are someone who is already fairly lean, or you're 5 foot fuck all, or your activity levels are just very low, you're probably not in that position where you can put yourself into that level of deficit. So you kind of just need to suck it up and accept the fact that your calorie deficit is gonna be smaller, and that is fine, okay? But before we look at anything else to do with nutrition, if you are looking to lose weight, gain weight, maintain your weight, manage your weight, whatever fucking direction, accept the fact that calories are king, and anyone saying otherwise is wrong, okay? Calories in vs calories out is literally a law of thermodynamics. It's a law of physics. You cannot argue it. Simple as. The second rule and principle that we want to get over here is that protein is the only essential macronutrient, okay? And again, I'm speaking to the average person right now, the general population. I'm not speaking to elite level athletes or bodybuilders or whoever the fuck else, okay? The only thing that you really need to concern yourself when it comes to macros is protein. That is the one essential macronutrient that you need to consistently get every single day, somewhere in the region of 0.7 to 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. There are going to be people that tell you maybe need more or prefer to have more. Those people are wrong. It might be a preference, you might enjoy eating that, but like more protein than that, that's totally fine. But if you're looking to get an adequate amount, not just for health, but to actually build muscle and gain strength for performance, somewhere within that range is perfectly fine. You do not need to be eating more, but if you want to, that is also fine. Now, in terms of macros, protein, that's set in place. We need to get that consistently every single day. If we look at carbs and fats, or the other way around, fats and carbs, they can fluctuate, okay? You might have a day where fats are higher, carbs are lower. You might have the next day where carbs are higher, fats are lower. Vice versa, they can chop and change. As long as your protein is consistent and your calories are being nailed, those two other macros can chop and change, okay? Please do not stress too much about them, all right? Calories are king for body weight management. Protein is essential macronutrient for, body composition, but health and well-being as well on top of that. The other two, you're most likely going to be getting other carbohydrates from the filler of the rest of your calories, but just make sure the calories and protein are spot on. job done for the average person anyway. Third rule and principle is that dietary fats aren't making you fat, okay? We are no longer living in 1970. This misconception that fats make you fat needs to get so far to fuck. Fats, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here, and you know, as much as I was saying protein is the only essential macronutrient, fats are needed and essential for hormonal regulation. Now, the reason why we don't really set a specific number as such for it, I always try and give at least 40 grams of fats, unsaturated fats anyway, okay? Reason being is for hormonal regulation, brain function, it's another source of energy, but if we're just looking at like improved mental health, improved hormonal regulation, but also improved well-being, improved satiety, things like that as well, that number as a sort of minimum is an adequate amount for females anyway. Males can get away with eating fuck all fats, if we're being bluntly honest. They might have a bit of a shit time doing so, but they're not going to die or lose any kind of like reproductive functions or anything like that. But yeah, about 40 grams, somewhere between like 30 and 40 for a male at the absolute minimum, and you're grand there. They're healthy, okay? So we have I'm going to keep things simple. We have two kinds of fats. We have saturated and unsaturated. Saturated would fall into the category of the bad fats. Okay, so we're looking at, like, just say fat from meat or lard, butter, oils, that kind of thing, all right? Unsaturated is more the quote unquote healthy kind of fats. So extra virgin olive oil would go into that category, avocado, natural nuts or nut butter, 70% or higher dark chocolate. Those kind of things I would mostly prioritize my clients' fat intake around. Mostly for digestion, but they come with unsaturated fats, which are more beneficial for all the things that I've just spoken about as to why we want fats in our diet. Fourth and final rule, principle, I guess I'm kind of just myth busting at this point, but sugar is not the enemy. Okay, this is very outdated, this misconception that sugar causes like insulin resistance or sugar makes you fat or whatever it might be. One thing that you need to be aware of and accept is all carbohydrates get broken down into sugar. Carbs, whether they are good or bad, complex or simple, whether it's oats or Haribo, get broken down into glucose, which is a type of sugar. Okay, so all carbs get converted into sugar. Be aware of that, okay? And I think that's one step towards getting over this myth that sugar is bad. The only difference is obviously between the micronutrition in the carb. So like if we look at oats, there's obviously more fiber, there's more trace amounts of protein, things like that. You're not going to get that in things like honey or Haribo, etc. Another difference, and this is more important, is how quickly it enters and leaves your bloodstream. Okay, so if we're having simple carbohydrates like, the Haribo, the sweets, the cereal, the honey, the jam, those kind of things, they enter our bloodstream and leave our bloodstream very quickly, meaning that we have a spike in a rapid drop-off in terms of blood glucose, which is not a bad thing, by the way. Whereas if we look at complex carbs, the oats, the rice, the potatoes, the breads, etc., takes longer because of the fiber content. It takes longer to digest and process and get absorbed into our bloodstream, meaning that it takes longer, so it's a bit more of an even spread of energy and blood glucose throughout the day as well, and meaning it's less of a drop-off. So there's less spike and there's less decline. These things aren't inherently bad. Okay, when we talk about blood glucose, we want a spike, we want a drop-off. That is a completely normal human bodily function in order for us to actually get the most out of our nutrition, all right? In terms of the carbs, it can be utilized at different points. Like if you're pre and post training, we want more glucose and glycogen into our body quickly. We want it to be readily available. So those simple carbohydrates can be utilized. If we're looking to do more long endurance sports or just keep ourselves with more even energy throughout the day, complex carbohydrates can be utilized. Both are fine and both are good and both can be utilized. Sugar is not bad. It's not going to create insulin resistance. Obviously, I'm not speaking to diabetic people here. They are in the minority. I'm speaking to the majority right now. That's a different conversation. But these things can be utilized, and don't be afraid to utilize them. Just don't overdo it. Again, when we talk about gaining body fat, it's being in a caloric surplus for an extended period of time that's going to get you fat. If we're talking about insulin resistance, it's going to come from an overwhelming amount of adipose tissue or just becoming a fat fuck over an extended period of time that's really going to cause that more than anything else. That's more of an overconsumption than just a use of them, okay? With most things in life, is it the devil's in the dose or in the amount? There's use, then there's abuse. You get the point that I'm trying to make, okay? What I'm saying is sugar isn't the enemy there, but being a fat fucker and abusing it will turn it into an enemy. But yeah, those are 4, I guess, non-negotiables when it comes to nutrition. I keep changing how I'm wording this, but those are kind of like 4 principles that I think are getting forgotten about when it comes to nutrition. And I want to keep things as simple as possible, and that keeps nutrition very simple. Nutrition can get very wanky, it can get overcomplicated, and I think with just the overwhelming amount of information and fear-mongering on the internet and social media, I'm not surprised the average person doesn't know where the fuck to go when it comes to nutrition. But yeah, just to summarize, calories are king. Making sure that you are keeping on top of calories in, these calories out, depending on what your goal is. Making sure you're eating an adequate amount of protein, as that's the only essential macronutrient and it needs prioritized. Dietary fats won't make you fat. They are used for hormonal regulation, overall mental health, well-being, and energy. So don't think that they're bad. And then also on top of that, sugar is also not the enemy, okay? We can utilize it, and all carbs are technically converted into sugar. So we're not just labeling all fucking carbohydrates bad, are we? All right, simple as. But yeah, hopefully that's me going off on a rant there, but hopefully you've learned something. If you have found this video beneficial, useful, educational, any kind of way, leave me a comment below. If there's anything else you want me to cover, or if you have any questions about anything I've spoken about, leave a comment below, and I'll catch you in the next one.